I was the one who told her she had no business dealing with him, being that he already had 5 kids, 4 different baby mothers.
She did abandon her kids.
She's pregnant now.
And she left her
That's
kids.
not none of your business. Have a baby so you can stop worrying about
She's
mine.
I was taking care of your business.
No, you wasn't.
Yes, I was. You and your children.
You wasn't. You never was. Having a sexual relationship with your mother's boyfriend.
He was talking about having sex. I snuck out of my grandma's house the night we went to a park. We had sexual relations.
Whose child do you think it is?
At the moment, it could have been 2 guys, Mr. Chenault and another guy.
Mr. Kenneth Fegan is in court today to expose a dirty secret he kept for over 40 years. Why does the nature of this secret raise questions over Ms. Pinkston's paternity? Ms. Pinkston insists she knows who her real father is. And here is how the court case starts.
That Miss Pinkston is your biological daughter.
Yes, yeah.
You claim you kept this secret for 40 years, but now say the DNA will prove your case.
That's right, yeah.
Miss Pinkston, you stand before me without any doubt. Mr. Fegan.
Ms. Pinkston's mother took her to Mr. Fegan's house and casually tells her he's her biological father. And of course, she made her promise not to tell anyone about it. That little girl carried that secret till this day at court, and presently she's 43. Wow, didn't Mrs. Pinkston think her daughter was too young to handle a time bomb such as this?
I met Mr. Fegan here when I was 16 years old. I never knew of him, never heard nothing about him. And then all of a sudden one day, my mom decided to take me with her to a friend's house. My mom calls me to the dining room. She goes, I want you to meet somebody. They get to talking to me, Mr. Fegan, and my mom. Then my mom just out says, hey, by the way, this is your father.
Who did you think your father was? Did you know your father?
Even though Mrs. Pinkston was married, she had a secret affair with Mr. Fegan during their working years at a plant. Can you imagine that? So during breaks and after working hours, they engaged in extracurricular activities. Then she'll return home to her husband like nothing happened. This is beyond scandalous.
Me and Miss Pinkston's mother had an affair. We worked together at a plant. We got to know each other.
You spent a lot of time together. Because you worked a lot of hours together.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Honor.
Did you know she was married?
Well, yes, at the time, it was wrong what we...
How long did the affair last?
This hide-and-seek love game went on for 6 months without Mr. Gus Pinkston finding out about it. How would you suspect a thing when your wife only goes work and comes back at what you presume to be the appropriate time? Eventually, she got pregnant. And guess what she did? She conspired with her illicit lover to keep the pregnancy and pin it on her husband. This is sickening. If Mr. Pinkston really isn't the defendant's biological father, then they played him to his grave.
And told me that she was pregnant.
When she told you, did she say, and I think you are the father? Or you might be?
I was the father. And she told me we're going to keep this a secret. Well, then we knew we had to be quiet because she was married.
They knew it was wrong for what they did to my dad.
She did not.
You won't believe Mrs. Pinkston's reason for introducing her daughter to who she believes to be her biological father. She didn't do this because she felt guilty or was trying to make things right. No, not at all. Instead, it was because she thought her baby girl was dating Mr. Fegan's family member. The intention was to prevent her from practicing incest, but little did they know that it wasn't her, but her sister that was dating the supposed family member.
All came out for the cat to get out the bag is when I was 16, they told me that Kenny was my father. The only reason why was because my mom thought I was dating one of his family members, and that's why they told me. But needless to say, it was not me, it's my sister that was dating.
You can only imagine that learning about her mother's infidelity traumatized young Miss Pinkston till this present day. The little girl couldn't share the secret with the man she feels is her biological father till he passed away. One can't help but understand how hard it was for her to hide such a secret from her dad.
That was like the worst day of my life because my mom sit down, she goes, this is your father. I'm like, no, my dad is at work, so what in the world are you talking about? And next thing you know, there's tears everywhere. Everybody's crying. It was pretty much the worst day of my life.
The crazy thing is, Mr. Fegan did meet his mistress's husband in person a few times at his house. Yeah, you heard me right. During these visits, he would pose as a family friend, but his aim was to see Ms. Pinkston. What's more absurd is that he claims he has an inkling that Mr. Pinkston knew the truth about his little girl's paternity. How convenient it is for him to say that when the man is late, may his soul rest in peace.
Had some kind of inkling that I was
You felt like he knew?
It was just a feeling that in my heart that I felt that he had to know something because I loved this girl so much.
Did you have an occasion to meet her father, the man she believes?
A couple times I met him.
You did?
Yeah.
No, you haven't heard it all. Mr. Fegan extended his reach after Mr. Gus's death. While the Pinkstons were mourning, he took the opportunity to tell the kids of his supposed daughter that he's their grandfather. That right there is a hypocritical move, and Judge Lauren, like everyone in the courtroom, was shocked when Ms. Pinkston brought this into the light. But his excuse was that he felt she had told her kids about him already, so he decided to put icing on the cake. You can only imagine how devastated those kids were when he told them what he told them.
It was probably a few days after he passed away, we was all at my mom's house. And Mr. Fegan, he comes over and I had my kids there. My kids really didn't know him, but when my dad passed away, he decided to take it upon himself to tell my kids.
The stakes with this case are extremely high. Whoever Ms. Pinkston's father actually is, the secret has been exposed. The stakes have never been higher, and the result of this scandal will shock you. What does the DNA test say?
Fegan,
Yes.
you are not her
Oh my
father.
God.
Miss Holthouse stands before the judge to prove the paternity of her 3-month-old son, Xander. How could you sleep with your mother's boyfriend and get pregnant by him? That's just nuts. Very few men are as cruel as Mr. Shinwald, because how can you impregnate your girlfriend and her daughter at the same time? Let's hear what he has to say.
Ms. Holthouse, you are here to prove paternity of your 3-month-old son, Zayden.
Yes, Your Honor.
Shockingly, you confess it's either a man you shared a sexual relationship with who wants nothing to do with your child.
Mr. Shinwald doesn't deny that he had a sexual relationship with Ms. Holthouse, but he's unwilling to accept that he impregnated her. What a disgusting human. Well, that's where the effectiveness of a paternity test comes into play, so we would find out in due time. Pacing about outside the courtroom is Mrs. Holthouse. Desperate to know the outcome of this court case, she is willing to testify a thing or two as well.
You are Ms. Holthouse's mother's boyfriend.
Yes, Your Honor.
Though you admit you were intimate with your girlfriend's daughter, you say you strongly doubt you fathered her child.
Yes, Your Honor.
So Ms. Holthouse's mother is waiting outside the courtroom, and I'm sure
It all began with a text message Mr. Shinwald received while he was seated beside his girlfriend. It was an encoded message from her daughter, but he pretended like he didn't know what it meant. That text message ignited a temptation in him, and the temptation became an inferno days later when he saw her in tight clothes. From there on, things got out of control, and one thing led to another. Perhaps he liked his girlfriend's younger version and decided to have them both.
this all started with a word you misspelled in a text.
Yes, Your Honor.
He told us the word you abbreviated, and I can imagine how you abbreviated it. You sent the message. Was it meant for him or meant for someone else?
It was meant for him, but my mom was sitting
With the attention turned to her, Ms. Holthouse confesses that the text was never a mistake. She knowingly seduced her mother's boyfriend right underneath her nose. What a naughty girl she is. And it gets worse.
About having a sexual relationship with your mother's boyfriend.
I had not really thought about it until I got a phone call from him. And he was talking about having sex and going somewhere. I snuck out of my grandma's house that night and we went to a park.
Rather than ignoring the text message, can you guess what Mr. Shinwald did? He acknowledged his wooer's move with a phone call. Over the phone, they made plans on where to meet and the atrocities to commit when they met. The chosen venue for the intercourse was a park late at night. Now it's clear that they both had sexual desires for each other, but were waiting for someone to make the first move.
So how long did this sexual relationship last?
It was about 6 months.
6 months.
Yes, sure.
Did your mother have any idea this was going on?
She didn't have any idea until Mr. Chenault and her got locked up and he got out while he was in jail.
How did she find out?
She had kind of manipulated both of us, saying that I told her.
After the night at the park, their scandalous relationship went on for 6 months without Ms. Bogardus suspecting anything. But when her suspicions began, she played them both by lying to Mr. Shinwald that her daughter had already confessed to her. What a smart move. That witty move was enough to get her boyfriend spouting the truth about what went down between him and her daughter.
I did not know, but as my mom was pregnant with my sister, my sister is Mr. Chenault's daughter.
How old is her daughter?
Is about to turn 11 months.
How old is your child?
He is 3 months.
When you find out you're pregnant, whose child do you think it is?
The craziest part of this case is that Ms. Holthouse and her mother both got pregnant in close proximity. Her mother's baby is 11 months old, while hers is 3 months old. It would be disastrous if the defendant is the biological father of both babies.
I'm guessing at this point, hoping she throws you out at this point.
Actually, Your Honor, no.
Now it's time for Ms. Bogardus's testimony. She detected foul play when her daughter developed weird behaviors whenever she's around Mr. Shinwald. What's more fascinating is that she and her boyfriend have been together for 20 years, and he helped her raise her daughter from infancy. This right here is a very sick man.
Something was going on.
Right, because my daughter was acting funny.
What was she acting like?
If I was sitting on the couch next to Mr. Chenault and I would get up to go to the bathroom, she would get up out of the chair across the room to sit by him.
Oh, no, she didn't.
As it stands, Mr. Shinwald could be the biological father of both kids birthed by his girlfriend and her daughter. There's only one way to find out, a paternity test. Let's just check out what the DNA test had to say about this case.
Chenault Bogardus. As it pertains to 3-month-old Zayden Holthouse, Mr. Chenault, it has been determined by this court are not his father.
Ms. Kavanaugh had appeared before Judge Lauren a while ago to test 2 men she felt were potential fathers to her 1-month-old son, Malcolm. Unfortunately for her, none of them tested positive. Now she's back again to conduct a paternity test for Mr. Scott and Mr. Spence, her mother's friend, on the possibility of either of them being the father of the same kid. Wow. Did someone turn up the heat in the court because it's so hot in here?
Thank you, Jerome. Good day, everyone. Ms. Kavanaugh, you appeared in our courtroom previously and tested 2 men as potential fathers of your 1-month-old son, Malcolm.
Yes, Your Honor.
Unfortunately, neither turned out to be his biological father.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, today...
Is there a limited number of times you can turn a woman down if you're not interested in her? I don't think so. Miss Kavanaugh made several attempts to have sex with her mom's close friend, but he turned her down time and time again. Eventually, he gave in and let her have her way with him. What's wrong with involving her mother when she was being too persistent? Perhaps he wanted her to, but was shy at first.
A friend of Miss Kavanaugh's mother and say her daughter made several attempts to have sex with you. Then after a lapse in judgment, you admit you did sleep with her. Now you say there's a chance you could be Malcolm's father. Miss Kavanaugh.
Yes, Your Honor.
Your mother's friend?
In the midst of the chaos lies the calmness of the fact that Mr. Spence never had a sexual relationship with Miss Kavanaugh's mother. It's hard to believe that a grown-up man and woman would have a very close relationship without sexual activities involved, though, but who knows? Anything is possible.
And so was he just a friend of your mother's, or did you know whether or not he was intimate with your mother?
That I do not know of. I just know that they were really good friends. Like, that's all I know.
Mr. Spence?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you enlighten the court on the nature of your relationship with Miss Kavanaugh's mother?
Judge Lauren is curious to know how many times the intercourse occurred. Aren't we all? Mr. Spence claims it happened once, but his friend's daughter believes it to be more than once.
So how many times were you intimate with her?
One.
Just once?
Just once.
Just one time, Miss
Your
Kavanaugh?
Honor, I do not believe it to be once. It was at least twice, but how I remember it.
At first, when Ms. Kavanaugh got pregnant, she didn't think her mom's friend was the baby's father. Instead, she thought it was one of the men she previously brought to the court. But when the results were out, and none of them were her baby's father, she came to a conclusion that Mr. Spence could be the one. Judging from the last time the pair had sex, there's a strong chance that he could be Malcolm's biological father. But even with that, we can't jump into conclusions just yet.
So, when you found out you were pregnant, did Mr. Spence's name come to mind immediately?
No, Your Honor. It really was like, I thought Mr. Bowles was the dad. Well, after the court, I started thinking, well...
Ms. Kavanaugh Sr., thanks to her other daughter, knew something was up between the accuser and defendant, but they denied it whenever she asked. But one day, during a mother and daughter argument, young Ms. Kavanaugh angrily unveiled the truth about her secret affair with Mr. Spence.
Because the relationship was inappropriate. I felt betrayed. Actually, when we were together, like all in the same room, I noticed them looking at each other a little differently.
You did?
Yeah, I knew my gut
woman's
told-
intuition.
Exactly.
My, oh my. Could you believe that during the period of the secret affair, Ms. Kavanaugh Jr. didn't hide the fact that she slept with other men from Mr. Spence? Oh, so it was an open relationship. Now we understand his doubts of being Malcolm's father, although he's ready to take responsibility if the test reveals he's responsible. Also present in court is Mr. Scott, who's also a potential candidate for being the baby's biological father.
Oh, so she told you?
Yes.
What did she say?
Sleeping with other people. I got a boyfriend.
Oh,
Which was Mr. Bowles at the time, Your Honor.
understood.
Yeah.
But we also know that there was Mr. Scott, too.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, I
He's
knew
been
about that.
tested and he's here. So describe your relationship with Mr. Scott.
There's a misunderstanding between young Ms. Kavanaugh and Mr. Scott on whether or not condoms were used whenever they had sex. The young woman believes there was one time they did it without protection, but the young man thinks not. How do you forget such details? Well, perhaps they were under the influence. Although comparing Mr. Scott's baby picture with Malcolm's, they look so alike. But hey, looks can be deceiving, so we can't judge the case based on the striking resemblance.
We're not using protection.
I use protection every time. I don't recall, not using protection.
So you don't recall. Now she says there was an instance when you did not, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you say there was no instance?
No, ma'am. I strongly, I don't believe that, Malcolm is mine.
You don't?
I don't.
Have you seen a picture of him?
Yes, ma'am.
After previously testing 2 separate men without getting a father for her baby, 2 different men are being tested again. But who actually is Malcolm's biological father? Let's hear it from the horse's mouth.
The paternity of 1-month-old Malcolm Kavanaugh. Mr. Scott, you are not. Are you ready for the next result? You okay?
Hey, I'm just nervous because I know I made mistakes and I can't change them.
Nothing crushes a man harder than finding out he's not his only son's biological father. Mr. Pace is in the courtroom today against his baby mama, Ms. Fobbs, because she cheated on him with Mr. Randolph, his roommate. Wow, this is crazy. Both men stand a chance of fathering the little boy.
Jerome, good day, everyone. Mr. Pace, you say you will be crushed today if DNA results reveal you are not the biological father of your son, Prince.
Yes, Your Honor.
You maintain that the defendant betrayed you by cheating with Prince's second possible father, your best friend.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, Ms. Fobbs, you say you were caught between the man you're in love with.
For Mr. Pace, 3 relationships are at stake today. The outcome of this case would determine if he would continue to be friends with best friend, father his son, and love his woman, the defendant. But whatever the outcome, it's unlikely he will ever look at his woman and best friend the same way again. I can't blame him for feeling this way.
Well, what's at stake would be, I would say, 3 relationships. The relationship that I have with Ms. Fobbs, as well as the relationship that I have with Mr. Randolph, also the relationship that I have with Prince. So there is a lot on the line for me. That's my little man.
Ms. Fobbs and Mr. Pace's epic relationship literally started on a beautiful sunny day, but it's on the verge of ending on what you could call a cloudy day. She moved in with him and his best friend shortly after they started dating. Now that was his mistake. He probably should have moved out to a new space when he decided to have his girl move in with him. Well, they moved out eventually when she got pregnant.
We met while I was actually driving. It was a hot day. She had on short shorts. I'm a leg man.
Okay.
So I pulled over, actually, and we had a conversation. I ended up getting her phone number. We went out on a few dates. We kind of bonded real quick. She ended up moving in with me and Mr. Randolph.
This sounds like a love triangle here, but Ms. Fobbs thinks not. She claims her intercourse with Mr. Randolph was only a one-time thing. Can someone tell this woman that once is enough to make a baby? Her excuse for cheating on her lover is that he works mostly at night and she felt neglected because he was hardly home when she needed him. How does that justify her scandalous actions?
I wouldn't necessarily call it a love triangle because the situation with me and Randolph only happened once. Upon me being in the house with Byron, the thing is, he works at night, so he's never really home with me, and I kind of took that as a feeling of neglect.
Apparently, Mr. Pace works as a club and party promoter, which causes him to be around lots of women. This didn't sit right with Ms. Fobbs. Perhaps she felt her lover had the same cheating mentality as her.
It was just me feeling neglected at home.
I do work a lot. I promote clubs and parties, so I am out and I am around a lot of, I would say, women. And she kind of, I guess, takes that as me being unfaithful.
So were there trust issues?
At times.
All it took for the truth about the secret affair between Mr. Randolph and the defendant to come out was a heated argument. You won't believe what Ms. Fobbs angrily yelled at her lover. She told him his best friend could be a potential father to his son. At that time, Prince was 2 years and about 6 months old. Whoa, that defo broke his heart into 1,000 pieces.
That she slept with your best friend?
Well, that's interesting. We were actually in a heated argument at the time that it occurred, but it kind of just got blurted out to me that Mr. Randolph could be a potential father for Prince.
Wait a minute, so you're in a heated argument as a couple?
Mr. Pace was emotionally strong enough to get himself together and have a face-to-face conversation with his friend to hear his side of the story. And after the meeting, both men agreed to do a DNA test to know who Prince's biological father is. How many men could handle this sort of situation the way he did?
When I found out initially, like I said, I was hurt. I felt betrayed by actually both parties at that point, but I wanted to assess the situation, not being upset, because I initially called Mr. Randolph to find out what was going on. I wanted to meet with him face to face to find out what's going on, but I did take a few hour break as far as...
Mr. Randolph claims he wasn't in the right state of mind when he slept with his best friend's woman. He blames their scandalous intercourse on alcohol intoxication. But how do you drink to the extent of not recognizing your roommate's girl and sleeping with her? Come off it, man. You knew what you were doing.
To answer that, Your Honor, I wasn't in the right state of mind. We both was intoxicated. You know, he was out promoting clubs, and she used to come home from the club intoxicated and, you know, looking for him. He's not there. Me and her talk, and, you know, one night the talk led to...
Mr. Pace forgave his best friend and girlfriend for stabbing him on the back, but you can imagine that the resentment he feels for them remains on the table. The DNA results would determine if the resentment stays on the table or he finally finds a way to let it all go. There's only one way to find out.
Mr. Pace, you are not his father.
My bad, bro.
Oh, man.
So sorry.
That's not what I wanted to hear.
I'm so sorry.
It's not right.
Do you need to sit down, Mr. Pace? Are you okay?
I'm okay.
Ms. Brown appears before Judge Lauren to prove that the defendant, Mr. Rutledge, is her daughter's biological father. However, despite the accuser's denial, the defendant believes that besides him, there are other men who are likely to be the baby's father. Does he have the proof to back up his claims? Let's find out together.
The only thing that matters to you today is the future of your 1-year-old daughter, Sanaya.
Yes, Your Honor.
You state you're here to prove the defendant, Mr. Rutledge, is her biological father because she needs 2 parents, yet he's seen her only once in her life.
The accuser claims she is certain that the defendant is her baby's father because they had sex during her window of conception. She says she didn't have sex with anyone else within that period because they were in a relationship. Ms. Brown didn't hide the fact that had sexual relations with other people, but says it was before the conception window. Nice try, but that's not enough to convince the court that he could actually be your child's biological father. Try harder.
Me and Mr. Rutledge, you know, we had sexual relations and things like that. And my doctor told me that I conceived May 25th, which was Memorial Day, which I was over there at his mother's house. She left to go to a cookout and everything, and me and him, you know, had sexual relationships on that day.
Contrary to the accuser's testimony, Mr. Rutledge says they were never in a romantic relationship, but a sexual one. Before anything started between them, she dated one of his cousins, and when they broke up, she had a one-night stand with his other cousin. Whoa, if that's the case, why did you have unprotected sex with her then?
A pretty clear account of her version of the story. Do you agree with that?
No, I do not, Your Honor.
Please tell me what your side of the story is.
Well, first of all, me and Ms. Brown was never in a relationship. It was only sexual relationship. I met Ms. Brown.
Don't drop your jaws yet, because he's not done with his testimony. He claims she also slept with his brother and tried to pin the pregnancy on him. Also, he says the accuser requested money for morning after pills from his brother, and when that didn't work out, she decided to try her luck with him. Whoa, what a bizarre situation we've got here.
The powder from him got with my brother. Now, let me tell you this. When she got with my brother, she ran the same story on my brother and told my brother that she was pregnant by him. She tells my brother that, oh, I need you to give me money for a morning after pill.
In her defense, Ms. Brown says none of the things Mr. Rutledge said is true. Come to think of it, morning after pills are free so you don't need money to get them? Who's being truthful and who's telling lies? It's hard to tell right now, but soon we will find out. In her testimony, the accuser continues by stating that herself and the defendant have mutual friends, so he knew everything about her before their relationship started. To back up her claims, she reveals to the court that some of his clothes are still at her place. The funny thing is, Mr. Rutledge couldn't say a word, so perhaps she's right, and he was trying to frame her as a bad person to get the judge on his side.
Yes, I left them out, Your Honor, because they're not facts. First of all, you don't have to pay for a morning after pill because everyone knows that a morning after pill is free whether you have insurance or not. So I never would say, can you pay for a morning after pill? As far as me having...
Presently, it's her word against his, but this young woman is winning the testimony battle. Apparently, they lived together in her apartment as lovers, but one day he went missing for days. While he was away, she saw pictures of him and his daughter's mother on Facebook. So when he came back, they had a heated argument that led to the defendant telling the accuser that she's not his girlfriend.
He knew who I was, he knew how I was, he knew everything before, before we started even messing with each other because we had mutual friends, we were around each other. He had a chance to get to know me and everything. And
even with everything Ms. Brown had testified before the judge, Mr. Rutledge still claims she's not being honest. It's about to be a long day in court. In an attempt to outpace her, the defendant threw a low blow disrespecting the accuser, which is wrong in the court of law. Now we're getting a clearer picture of who is trying to manipulate who.
He would at least text me or call me even if he didn't come over, and like out of nowhere, like for 4 days straight, I didn't hear from him or anything. And he came back out of nowhere, new sneakers, dressed and everything. Now, mind you, in the midst of everything, I went on Facebook and seen pictures of him and his daughter's mother together. So I'm like, okay, so this is where he's at. I'm all upset and everything.
This case is so chaotic, and like everyone in the courtroom, we can't wait to get to the bottom of it. The only way to get to the bottom of this case is by hearing the judge read out the DNA test result. So let's get to it.
When it comes to 1-year-old Sanaya Rutledge Brown, Mr. Rutledge, it has been determined by this court that you are her father.
What? Now what? What y'all gotta say?
Today's court case will have us look into a sexual scandal that took place over 30 years ago. The accuser, Ms. Harrison, and her sisters have been haunted by rumors of family secrets for over 3 decades. There's a rumor that their father had a live affair with Ms. Rogers' mother, so they took a DNA test to know if they're truly siblings.
Good day. Ms. Harrison, you and your sisters have been haunted by rumors of family secrets for more than 30 years. You say the defendant claims your father had an affair with her mother and therefore is your biological sister.
Yes, Your Honor, that's correct.
Now, you've requested results of a siblingship DNA test to prove...
Ms. Harrison begins her testimony by making it known to the court that both of their mothers were best friends. After her father's demise, her mother's sisters confronted Ms. Rogers' mother about her rumored affair with her father, but she denied. Hence, that's why she finds it hard to believe that the defendant is her biological sister.
Well, over the years, her mother has denied the rumors. Her mother denied even having an affair with our father. And her mother and my mother were best friends. And when I was 16 years old, my father died. And her mother was confronted by my mother's sister.
Besides their mother's friendship, these ladies all grew up together from childhood, so their bond should be stronger. But a rumor as dirty as that could break any bond amongst friends, so you can understand where the hate is coming from.
As far as I can remember, we were always in one another's lives. We grew up as cousins, even though we were not blood relatives.
But since your mothers were best friends, we were all close.
Said we spent holidays together. We did different things together, and because my mom and her mom were best friends.
Not intimidated by her alleged half-sister's vocal attacks, the defendant says their father told her she's his daughter when she was 8 years old. At that time, she had broken her arm and had surgery. While she was recovering on the hospital bed, he brought her a pink hippopotamus to aid her recovery. But not for the first time today, Ms. Harrison won't give Ms. Rogers a breather as she gets on her neck again.
Daddy to me when I was 8 years old when I broke my arm, and then when I had my surgery, he also brought me a pink hippopotamus to the hospital for me to get everybody to sign.
Ignoring the accuser's harsh words, the defendant gave another instance that made her believe Mr. Mr. Wilridge is her father. When she was 14, just before he passed away, he came to pick her up from school and took her to Watch Cafeteria in her hometown. Now, why did he try so hard to bond with a child that isn't his when he had kids of his own?
In my life, he was my father,
and none of you guys had a father figure in your life. He was just trying to be nice. That doesn't make him your father.
He told me at the age of 14, he picked me up from school just before he died and took me to Watch Cafeteria in our hometown. And I remember what I ate, I remember what he ate.
At this point, the judge tries to get more clarity on the situation by asking the defendant what she called her alleged father around family and friends, and her response is Uncle Fez. If what she's been saying all day is true, that means Mr. Wilridge had schooled her to keep the truth a secret from the others. Whoa, Uncle Fez was a real playboy.
To himself as daddy.
Yes,
to you. What did you call this man when you were around Miss Harrison and her family? Because
Uncle Fez.
So you called him your uncle.
What I was told to call him when my deceased sister
sleeping with two best friends. Apparently, Ms. Rogers had a private DNA test with Ms. Harrison's deceased sister, and according to the result, they are siblings. Hence, the deceased sister accepted her as a sibling before she passed away. We want to believe her, but it will take more than that to get everyone on her side.
She is not your sister.
I have proof right here.
She is not your sister.
I have proof right here, Your Honor, how me and her look so much alike.
Looks can
not
be,
just
you don't even look like
Let me see this evidence.
You don't
Not
even look
just
like her.
looks.
Looks can be deceiving.
So, ladies, I'd like to understand what this piece of evidence represents.
Now, here is something bizarre. While they were kids, Ms. Rogers and her sister Glenda saw Mr. Wilridge in bed with their mother through a peephole. However, Ms. Harrison and her sisters still don't believe that's enough to make the defendant their biological sister. Perhaps they want a videotape of the alleged incident.
Their aunt.
We seen them through the peephole in our bedroom.
Who did?
But that still doesn't make him. That still doesn't make him your father.
Hold on. I need to hear this story. Ms. Rogers, who's we and who did you see through a peephole?
At this point, the only way to get clarity on this case is by having Judge Lauren read out the DNA test results out loud. Who do you think the father would be? I promise you, the results will shock you.
Wilridge versus Rogers. Pertaining to whether Ms. Rogers is the biological half-sister of Ms. Harrison, Ms. McMahon, and Ms. Wilridge, it has been determined that you are indeed